There's presumably plenty of games coming out for the PS5 and Xbox Series X in the next year or so that are yet to be revealed, but we know about quite a few already. And while new franchises and fresh ideas are always exciting, there's something about getting to play the next big game in your favorite franchises that feels comforting. And there's going to be no shortage of those on next-gen consoles, of course. From direct narrative sequels to new installments doing completely different things, from cross-gen games to next-gen exclusives, from multi-platforms to exclusives, quite a few major sequels have already been announced for the PS5 and Xbox Series X, and here we're going to talk about 20 of the biggest ones. So without further ado, let's get started. Horizon Forbidden West. Guerrilla Games knocked the ball out of the park with Horizon Zero Dawn, their first ever open-world action RPG. And considering how good that was, we cannot wait to see how they do with a sequel, now that they have more experience to lean on. Horizon Forbidden West has only had one trailer so far, but it's already looking exciting, not just from a visual perspective, but also the new locations we'll be visiting in the game, and how it's going to follow up on its predecessor's excellent story. And of course, there's going to be new mechanical monstrosities to take on, and who can say no to that, right? FABLE. FABLE might not be Microsoft's most consistent franchise, to say the very least, but it holds a very special place in the hearts of many. And now, after years of dormancy and many leaks, it's been confirmed that Playground Games are making a new FABLE game. Really, that's pretty much everything we officially know about the game so far, but the prospect of a new mainline entry in the series, one made by the talented folks at Playground no less, is enough to get us hyped. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Insomniac Games are really putting a lot of work into the PS5 right off the bat with a couple of major games. We'll be talking about both of them here, but let's start with Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. It might not be a numbered sequel, but it's still one of the most exciting games coming out on next-gen consoles this year. If Spider-Man Miles Morales can deliver the same narrative strengths, punchy combat, and slick traversal that its predecessor did, with the PS5's horsepower to back all of it up, there's no way it won't be an early win for Sony's newest console. Forza Motorsport. With Forza Motorsport having skipped 2019, most people were extremely confident that the next game in the series would be launching this year as an Xbox Series X launch title. Titled simply Forza Motorsport, for now anyway, there's not much we know about the game, but if it delivers the same excellent simulation and depth of content as previous Forza games, it'll surely be another great entry in this consistent franchise. Gran Turismo 7. Of course, Microsoft aren't the only ones working on their next big next-gen racing sim. Sony and Polyphony Digital have also announced Gran Turismo 7, and there's plenty to look forward to. The gameplay footage that we've seen so far looks impressive, especially from a visuals perspective, while the idea of getting to play another more traditional Gran Turismo game that steps back from the mistakes Sport made at launch is also an exciting one in and of itself. SENUA'S Saga HELLBLADE 2. Ninja Theory was a big get for Microsoft, probably the biggest out of all of their recent acquisitions, and they're already at work on their big first-party exclusive. HELLBLADE 2 was the first game Microsoft revealed for the Xbox Series X, and though all we've seen of it so far is an in-engine trailer, it was enough to get the blood pumping. There's certainly improvements to be made over the first game, but if the sequel retains the incredible atmosphere, character development, storytelling, and production values of its predecessor, it'll be worth watching out for. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. This is perhaps the only game we've seen so far that actually hints at the potential of next-gen hardware, more specifically the PS5's SSD, which Sony has been talking up non-stop. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart's central hook of being able to seamlessly teleport between worlds is an inherently exciting one, and we cannot wait to see what Insomniac does with it. More importantly though, this is a new Ratchet & Clank game, and it looks amazing. How can anyone not be pumped about that? Halo Infinite. Following its less than stellar gameplay reveal, Halo Infinite surely has its work cut out for it as far as winning over audiences is concerned. But it is a new mainline Halo game launching right alongside the next Xbox. If the stars align and everything goes smoothly from this point forward, that can be a deadly combination. If 343 Industries can deliver a great campaign and solid multiplayer that they continue to build on for years to come, they will have struck gold. Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil 7 brought about a reversal of fortunes for Capcom's legendary survival horror franchise, and now with 2 more remakes under their belt, they're ready to return to the mainline stuff with the next big sequel. Resident Evil 8, or Resident Evil Village as Capcom are calling it, already sounds like a mouth-watering prospect, not only because it's promising to build on the excellent first-person foundations laid down by RE7, but also because of its gothic horror vibes and new setting. It's hinting at a much bigger scope than we've seen in Resident Evil games in recent years. State of Decay 3. State of Decay is one of those franchises that might not be the biggest name in the industry, but continues to garner a solid reputation for itself regardless. Both games in the series have hinted at greatness, and now that Undead Labs have the full financial backing of Microsoft, the hope is that with State of Decay 3, they will realize their premise's full potential. We've only seen a CG trailer so far, and the game is still in early development, which means it'll probably be a while before it comes out. But we have our fingers crossed that when it does, it'll be worth the wait. Far Cry 6. Far Cry has been a consistent franchise for a number of years now, so there's quite a bit of confidence that Far Cry 6 will be a solid new entry in the series at the very least. From what we've seen of it, it's hinting at some interesting things already, from being set in a fictional country caught in the grips of a revolution, to featuring a formidable antagonist played by the magnetic Giancarlo Esposito. Ubisoft will undoubtedly have more to share about this one in the near future, but we're already quite optimistic about it. Psychonauts 2. How long have we been waiting for this one? Psychonauts is one of the greatest 3D platformers of all time, and the road to the sequel has been an absolute roller coaster. Starting as a crowd-funded project and now benefiting from the boost provided by Microsoft's funding, Psychonauts 2 looks set to deliver on all fronts, and we honestly cannot wait to get our hands on it. It looks weird, it looks wacky, it looks colorful, it looks fun. It looks like everything we want it to be. Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Quarantine. Ubisoft have struck gold with Rainbow Six Siege and the ridiculous success they have found with it this generation. And while there's nothing going to stop that train for some time to come, the Rainbow Six property has other irons in the fire as well. We've only seen a brief glimpse of Rainbow Six Quarantine so far, but its central premise is enough to get us excited. A co-op PvE game with sci-fi and horror elements thrown in, with the tight mechanics and action of Rainbow Six to tie it all together? Well, sign us up. Stalker 2. Stalker 2's story is one that's full of ups and downs, thanks mostly to the turbulent life of its developer, GSC Game World. But for the first time in years, it feels like an actual, tangible thing that's within touching distance. And the fact that this series is also making its console debut is a really big deal too. Stalker games have incredible atmosphere and world building, and the upcoming sequel is promising to double down on all the biggest strengths of its predecessors, which absolutely means it has the potential to be a truly great game. Hitman 3. The Hitman franchise has been flying high ever since its revival, with Hitman 2 in particular being a real gem, so to say that we're looking forward to the release of Hitman 3 would be a massive understatement. There isn't a lot of dedicated stealth to go around in the industry these days, but if you're a fan of the genre, there's nothing that comes close to Hitman. The depth of its sandboxes, the intricacy of its complex web of mechanics, the dynamic nature of its objectives, and the sheer vastness of options available to players is staggering in Hitman. And if Hitman 3 can give us more of that, it'll be an instant win for IO Interactive. Dirt 5. Codemasters are one of the biggest names in the industry when it comes to racing games, and for very good reason. They never fail to hit the mark with their new releases. Dirt 5 in particular is looking really interesting, with its mixture of typical Dirt gameplay and much more bombastic and over-the-top elements, while its story-driven campaign also seems like an intriguing prospect. This one will be out before next-gen platforms arrive, but with the promise of 120 FPS gameplay on both the PS5 and Xbox Series X, we imagine quite a few people will want to wait for those next-gen versions. Watch Dogs Legion. Watch Dogs 2 was a significant improvement over its predecessor in almost every way possible, and it's looking like the upcoming Watch Dogs Legion will continue that upward trajectory. What's exciting about this game, however, is that it's running with some really unique ideas. The concept of being able to play as any NPC you can see is one with a lot of potential, and based on recent showings, it seems like the game might just be able to pull it off. With a central hook as ambitious and as unusual as this one can never be too sure that Watch Dogs Legion will be an unequivocal success, but we are certainly optimistic so far. Yakuza Like a Dragon. All great franchises have to figure out how to reinvent themselves and still retain their essence at some point in their lives. Yakuza is surely a great franchise, and with Yakuza Like a Dragon, it's surely reinventing itself. No one would have thought until not that long ago that the next mainline Yakuza game would be a turn-based JRPG. But here we are, and you know what? It looks great. It looks silly and ridiculous, just as Yakuza should, while it's also hinting at a dense and engaging world and a compelling cast of characters. Once again, just as Yakuza should. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Assassin's Creed has now completely and successfully transitioned into being a full-blown RPG, and with the upcoming Valhalla, it's going to double down on that even further. The very premise of being able to play as a Viking raider in 9th century England has an undeniable allure. While all that we've seen of the game so far, from its visceral combat and the expanded role-playing mechanics to its world and its settlement building stuff, looks very promising as well. Hopefully, this will sort out all of the issues of bloat that plagued Odyssey. If it does, it might just turn out to be one of the best games in Ubisoft's open-world franchise. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is the very definition of cult classic, and though we wouldn't have imagined until a few years ago that it'd ever get a sequel, it's actually happening, and happening pretty soon. Hardsuit Labs seem to have all of the elements in place to make a worthy successor to it, and while there's still plenty we don't know about Bloodlines 2, what the developers have shown and said of it so far sounds very promising. More than anything else, we're just excited about the prospect of being able to jump back into a deep RPG set in the World of Darkness universe. There's not nearly enough of those, and we're hoping Bloodlines 2 will be good enough to scratch that itch. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from Gaming Bolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.